Hello everyone, welcome to Homeschool Autism Life. My name is Jamie and today's video is about the read alouds we are loving so far this year. Now it hasn't been very long, I know, but I am really excited to share these ones. I did briefly share about which ones I was kind of thinking about doing for our dinosaur unit to go along with our Gather Round homeschool unit called Dinosaurs. And I am just loving how some of the videos that we are watching on YouTube that I find, and usually I just plug in the search engine the things that I think are really interesting, and then usually I'll put in for kids sometimes. But it's been interesting to find a whole bunch of different information about how these bones were brought to museums, how much of the bones, how much of the building of these dinosaurs was left to the imagination of the paleontologists that had found them. I am just loving this unit so far. But the first book that I wanted to share with you was one that's not about dinosaurs at all, which you'll be like, well, how does that work? So this book is called The Motel of Mysteries by David Macaulay. And what I have found so interesting about this is it really talks about how when we're looking in this little spyglass into history, and sometimes especially in the secular view of things, history is a millions upon millions of years, and it's such a vast thing that we can't even really comprehend it because our lifespans are so short in comparison. This book really talks about the just dealing with that enigma, and I have loved so far finding this book. I'm trying to find you a good picture. But essentially what has happened is this, there was a cataclysmic worldwide something or other, and they called it something very, weird. I wasn't really sure what it is, but something happened and all of North America is covered. And there's some things that are recognizable to us: the Golden Arches, a pizza place, a bowling alley. So there's a bunch of different things that we recognize today, but in the year 4022 they don't recognize. And so it's amazing what they interpret things as. And for me, that was a big thing to teach my children especially. But they mark it like an archaeologist would or a paleontologist would, and then they guesstimate what is happening. So in that picture that I just showed you, they're talking about, this is a sarcophagus, this thing. And the person that was there was propped up in her burial place, and the urn, the sacred urn right here. And it's been fun because my children, it brings up some interesting conversations. So for my girl children, my daughters, they're like, well, that's stupid. And I go, well, it kind of is, because we're looking at it from all of these things being very recognizable to us because we live here. We deal with this stuff all the time. And so there's nothing special about these things to us because we see that. But they're seeing a moment in time where somebody has died or been buried, and we wouldn't just have that happen that way. We would be intentional on how we buried them, what we surrounded them with, what kind of cap this person was wearing. And so it's been so good to link that story with the dinosaurs and the millions upon millions of years and the catastrophe in the form of a meteor rather than a flood, not a shower, a flood. And all of these things that I feel are so beautifully entwined, because then I can say, okay, girls, why do you think they're seeing those things in there? Why is man's science putting this into in terms of millions upon millions of years? Well, they don't see mass burial today, and so they assume that the way things go happen just the way they happen today. So that's been a book I have found so beautiful to link the two, just link them so that our kids can think through, well, why are these learned people, these very, respectable scientists, looking at the world the way they do? Why are they making those mistakes, right? And so then it's not a question of, well, mommy is telling me that they're wrong and she's right. It's, let's think these things through and have the discussion so that you can make up your own mind. This is what mommy thinks, but what do you think? And so I'm loving that. The other thing that I do is I have been sharing all of the books that have discussions about the scientists and how they discuss the Bible. And this book is How Science Solved the Greatest Mystery on Earth. And they're talking about the Bible, but in terms of those silly people who read the Bible and take it seriously or pay attention to it, and then science and how science has changed that and fixed that. And again, having those really deep discussions about, well, what do you think about what they said? And do you agree with them? Do you think that they are correct, or do you think that they have a bias, just like we have a bias? And why do you think your bias might be good versus someone else's bias? And so it's been this wonderful conversation. And so I don't shy away from, I'm just getting you another book. It's stuck. I haven't shied away from any of these sort of books, and I've been really enjoying that. But this one is millions of years, and it has lots of really good information that I wanted to maintain for my kiddos as well. Now, to balance that all out, I also have this book, Dinosaurs for Kids by Ken Ham. And I picked up this book because I did want to go through and read about some of the things that are in this book, just the very ideas that we talked about, so that the kids had an idea of what a Christian scientist's viewpoint is. And I don't know if Ken Ham is a scientist, but I know he spends a lot of time talking to them. But he wrote this book. And like I said, I mean, sometimes he can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Very one-sided, which I don't disagree with necessarily, but I do want my kids to have a more rounded version of events, so that they can see, and when they go out in the world and they might meet up with this sort of ridicule or people may say, well, what you think is stupid, and being able to not only listen to them and their thoughts, but not get personally affronted, if you will, and then be able to say in response, well, this is why I believe it, and it's okay if you don't agree with me. But I don't want them to be shaken. I want them to have a foundation, and this is one of those things that I feel is really important. But again, it's just got lots of beautiful pictures, lots of things that we can discuss. And I've got another one talking about the flood and the flood myths that are around the whole world. And I just want to make sure that my kids have a well-rounded idea of that. So the last favorite that I'm going to share is, I've been reading in Read Aloud, The 9 Fruits of the Spirit. We started with joy. We started with joy, and it's by Robert Strand, and we have been going through these and asking lots of questions about how do you have joy despite your circumstances. And I felt that this one was a really good one to go with our dinosaur unit as well, because as we're talking about these things and how Christian scientists have been ridiculed or made fun of or whatever, it was asking the question, is there a way that you can have joy despite your circumstances when somebody else is making fun of you or suggesting that your ideas are ridiculous and stupid? How do you still have joy, and how do you look at that? And it's not a vindictive thing. It shouldn't be something that you're like, well, wait until you see. It's supposed to be one of those things that we share. So I hope that this has been a good video for you, that you've enjoyed it, and that you'll pick up some of these books. I will leave links down in the description box for you to pick up. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.